All right, it is chapter 7, the Chrysalis Period. So if you are just joining us now, we're almost at the end. You've missed out. But you can go back to the beginning. And this is an 8-video series. The 8 videos are based on, actually it's probably gonna end up being a 10-video series by the time it's done, because there was an intro, then the 8 lessons lupus taught me from surviving to thriving with autoimmune disease. And then our final one we'll do, I think, we'll see how it goes, but I think I'll probably do one for living well beyond the book, okay? Leading into the sequel. But the sequel kind of got interrupted by COVID, as did everything. So that's why if you're just finding this video now, or if it's just been shared to you by a friend, go back and start at the beginning with the introduction, not because it's a linear transformation, but there are some foundational building that goes on. And this was actually the order that I learned my lessons for the most part. I mean, like I said, some of them are intertwined, some of them continue on for a period of time. But you need to have all of them in order to have that full transformation. At least I did. And the reason that I'm bringing you along this time, I was doing the Change Your Story presentations, which were, it was a book signing, promotion of the book, so that people knew that there is a better way. You don't have to be condemned and suffer with autoimmune diseases. You can thrive. And so your copies don't come with the little tabbies, by the way. This is my book that I go back to. When I'm struggling, I go back to the basics. Even I go back to the basics. So if you don't have a copy of it yet, reach out to me and I will get you a copy. I'm giving them away at no cost for the rest of 2020, just as my way to help you survive this year and to get back into thriving. And if you're not getting back into thriving, if you didn't hear this message before, you didn't know that you could thrive with autoimmune, this is the first you're hearing about it, then you definitely want to have it so that you can get that foundation and understand that there is a better way. You don't have to live with it and be miserable. You can live with it and feel amazing and thrive and be vital and yeah, all the things you want to be. With your autoimmune disease. They don't have to hold you back, which is a concept that is really hard to grasp if you haven't been there and you're where I am right now, which is right back in a flare of all 3 of my autoimmune diseases, which I haven't had in forever. And we've been working through this journey to get out of them. And I'm back to feeling so much better, so much better. And I am committed to finishing this year strong. I'm back in my routines, back in just doing all the practice, living well, which I haven't really laid out living well because I think it's a process, and we're going to talk about that today. So really today is reflection period. I want you to really look and see what's been easy for you to change on this journey? What was, no big whoop to change your mindset or embrace energy, cleaning, doing energy hygiene every day, changing, cutting out some toxic foods, some toxic people, some toxic settings. What's been easy for you? Where are you at? And how are you doing? Because that's really what chapter 7's about. So lesson number 7 was my chrysalis period. And that's where I write about what that looked like. So I called it my chrysalis period because it really, if you know the lifespan of a caterpillar, right? A caterpillar is born, the larva, they develop, and they wander around munching, literally surviving on leaves, and they're down low, just crawling around. Very limited in the things that they can do, and very limited in their perspective, okay? And so I equated my pre-transformation period to my caterpillar phase, where I very much was in autopilot. I was going around munching, surviving. I was working, I was raising kids. I was just like this, literally. I thought I knew what I needed to do, and I did it. And then I just thought that that was normal to hurt. It was normal to gain weight. It was normal to be tired. I did a lot. I had a lot on my plate. So of course I was tired, and everybody would just tell me, you know, oh, you're just doing too much. Oh, and so I was a caterpillar. It's normal for a caterpillar to just be surviving, okay? And then as I started to learn the lessons that I've taught you over the last 6 lessons, as I started to implement those, I started to have a different perspective. I started to find a hope, and I started to dream again. I started to think maybe there's more than just this. And as the pain went away, I thought, wow, okay, if the pain is gone and the energy is gone, I feel better than I've ever felt. Maybe I can feel like this all the time. And then something would happen. Something, something not as dramatic as COVID, but something would throw me off. And sometimes I wouldn't even know what that something was. Sometimes it would just, you know, I'd think I had everything figured out, and then bam, I would have a flare. Whether that was I'd have an outbreak in my mouth for my lichen planus, whether that was that I would have some skin lesions, or I had one time, I went through a period of really serious heart. They actually diagnosed it as SVT. I had to wear a harness, and because I was having heart problems, and I already told you the heart stuff in my family. So when that started happening, I really started freaking out. My husband was like, if your patients had these symptoms, you would be going to the doctor, the hospital. You need to get there. And so I did. And they're like, yeah, you need to have workup done. And I didn't have any reason for that flare. I thought I had it figured out. I don't know where it came from. I had another one where I had stroke symptoms. Like, I lost some of my cognitive function. And again, neuropsychologist that I work with, he was like, yeah, you probably should go get a CT scan. The results of each of them was, if you control your lupus, you'll control your symptoms. There's no permanent damage. There's no, and I started wondering, you know, should I be taking medication? Am I being irresponsible by not following the doctor's advice of, you know, all these antibiotics and super antibiotics and steroids and chemo treatments and infusions and just the things that I knew were toxic. But that's what everybody else is doing. Maybe that's what I should do. So it would be this dance, right? I would get in front of it and I'd start to feel really awesome and think, I've got it, I'm there. And then I'd slide back. And one of the biggest, and I wrote about it in the book, setbacks I had when I felt like I've got this. I had actually, and I mentioned, I think in the last video, that I actually had left healthcare because I realized how toxic it was for me, and I could not stay healthy. I would just be triggered and triggered and triggered because I had so many autopilots. And so I was teaching at the university, and it's a pretty controlled environment, and it has its own set of toxicity for sure. And you always know when finals are coming around because all the students are sick. Well, all the students are sick because they're stressed beyond compare. And when you're stressed, even if you don't have autoimmune disease, it's just hard on your immune system. That's, yeah, anyway, it's another issue, but that's why it's so important to manage our lifestyle for our immune health. And so anyway, I felt like I was, I had left, I basically vanquished all my toxic environments. I was fortunate I was in a situation where I could do that, and it was necessary. And like I said, I had recognized that my health was #1 priority, and I needed to do that. And so I made the decisions I made so that I could be out of those environments. But in the university, I was really able to control my space, much more so than in the medical clinics or definitely in the hospital. So I left altogether, and after a couple of years, I felt like I had it all figured out. And so I always thought if I go back into healthcare, I'm going to go into home health, because home health is much more real, okay? It's where the patient is. And so if they're having issues, it's going to show up at home. They can come into the clinic and put on their happy face and tell me that they've done everything, even though I could tell they haven't. And we don't really know what's going on. You know, if they're hitting the wall, we don't really know why. And I just felt like I make a bigger difference in home health. And you've already figured out, I kind of need to make a difference. I just kind of am that way. I kind of need to help people, and I need to know I make a difference, because if I'm just out there doing it for whatever reason, it just doesn't fill me up. I'm needy that way. And so I heard of a position that was available with a company that I thought really aligned with my values, and I was excited about it. I thought, okay, they really care about patients. It's not just about the money, it's about patient care and quality of patient care. And I just really felt like our values aligned, and I thought this is an environment I can get behind. I can live, I can control my schedule so that I'm not burning too hard, because we already talked about eating the elephant one bite at a time. And so I can control my environment and my workload and all these things. And I'm in the environment I want to be. We're golden. And it took all of 2 weeks. All of 2 weeks for me to go right back into my old habits. Even now, when I look back on it, it's just, it was like an out-of-body experience. Because I was so automated in my routines, my programming. Remember, this is early. Remember early back in our, I think, what is that? That's like lesson 1 or lesson 3, I think. I don't know. It's early. I learned this lesson a long, long time ago. That understanding the choices I was making had an impact on my health. So choose wisely. And I would just fall back into those old patterns. Burning too hard, working too much, stopping at the drive-thrus, not fueling with food, but fueling with convenience, which is stupid because there's nothing that's faster than a banana or an apple. I mean, that's God's convenience food right there, and it's like candy. So what's my problem? My problem was just that was the programs that I had run, or that was the routine that I just did, and so I literally fell back into it. So that's I'm this week, you kind of have the basics. And if you're struggling with some areas and you're feeling better, you're like, okay, I'm dropping some weight, I've got energy, My inflammation is starting to shed. I can feel that, right? This is a process, but you're starting to feel that transformation happening. You will have a setback, and when you have that setback, don't lose hope. Okay, don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Don't beat yourself up like I do every single time. Why am I still going through this when I know better? So I knew that, and I always said that I would know when my transformation was complete, because it would no longer feel like I was trying to make the right decision, or because I was setting a routine, like I was doing these things so that I would have this outcome. Very structured, very intentional. And so I knew that my transformation would be complete when my new behaviors were automatic and my old behaviors felt foreign to me. And that happened. And that's when I wrote the book. When all of a sudden I realized that my normal was different. My normal was different from my old normal, for sure. And it was different than a lot of people around me, because they were still choosing to follow the allopathic, treatments, infusions, medications. And I don't want you to think that I'm dogging on that. That I'm negative about that. It just wasn't. It's not for me. And when I see patients, when I see friends, when I see people who are struggling, I've only seen those people who are in that caterpillar phase, because it's almost like it's an empowerment. Once you learn these lessons, and once you implement the connection between your body and your mind and your spirit, you learn to trust your mind. Your body starts to understand that your mind doesn't have to be limited by what your body is capable of doing. Your mind can do more. So your body has to trust your mind that it's not going to give it something that it can't do. And vice versa, your body has to trust your mind that it's not going to be unreasonable, right? And that you're connected to who you were born to be. This is my purpose, right? And I really feel like my purpose is to stand up and speak out. It's to tell you that there's a better way. I went through this so that I can help you go through that, okay? So when those things are aligned, which is why I had to reach back out and say, you know what? For me to be in line and be congruent, to have my systems be congruent, I can't just go back by myself, transform, heal, and then come back out to you and say, oh, you can do it. I need to bring you on this journey with me. And so that you can see these struggles and know that you're going to have them. You're going to have setbacks. But that's okay. It's okay to have setbacks. Just figure out where you lost it and come back in. Okay? So I had a paragraph here that I wanted to go on. And here's what I said. And a couple of things actually before I read this. So transformation, any journey is always emotion, right? There really isn't a destination. I mean, I say there is a destination because thriving is that destination, and you will get to thriving, but it's still a journey. And just like, I mean, I was thriving for 5 years before COVID knocked me completely back to where I haven't been for 10 years. So it's been a great ride, and it was totally worth it. And I do feel like that transformation, that butterfly emergence, but knowing that sometimes you might get your wing out and feel like, okay, I got it, and then bam, you're knocked back down. And especially this year, every time I'd start to feel like, okay, I've got it, whap, right back down. So I'm here for you. We can do this together. And this is what I want to remind you of. Even as a butterfly, you still land. You still land on a leaf. It's higher so that you have a different perspective, but you still have to rest. You still have to take it in. You cannot fly all the time. You can't glory all the time. You can't just take it in and look around. Sometimes you have to sit and rest. Sometimes you have to nourish and continue that lifestyle and awareness that got you there in the first place, because you can still get eaten by a bird or squished by a butterfly, or squished as a butterfly. And I kind of feel like COVID's been a bird, and it's kind of been swooping in and has taken a hunk out of my behind. And I'm just like, okay, that was a close call, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to fly. So it's not all glorious. My autoimmune diseases are still there, but don't you feel better? It's the journey. It's recognizing where you feel better and then building on that, doing more of that. I love to put in so much good that I don't have room for the bad. And how I say that now is I fill it up with wow, so there's no room for sad. So if I've got routine that makes it easier for me to make, I had at one of my presentations, I had a lady who said, it's a series of perpetual choices. And I said, oh, I like that. I'm going to take that, because that's exactly what it is. It's a series of perpetual choices. And you know your transformation is complete when those choices are more automatic, when it becomes your normal instead of so effortful. Give yourself grace. And when you're having a hard time coming out of that chrysalis, know that it's okay to rest and that it takes time to transform. My first transformation took me 5 years. I hope yours doesn't take that long. That's my purpose. My purpose for sharing is to not only give you hope, but also give you the tools to accelerate your journey. But it's still going to have all sorts of, life's an adventure. It's going to have all sorts of turns. It's going to have speed bumps. It's going to have potholes. And I just hope that you have enough fuel and tools through this holiday season to be able to find your journey. Okay, so next week is our final lesson, the hardest lesson for me, and probably the lesson I still struggle with. Not nearly like I used to. This year was actually, ironically, this was actually my year that this was my focus. And boy, has it come in handy. I even talked to my daughter about it, and I said, who would have thought that my one word for 2020, I would need to call it into play a lot. So with that little cliffhanger, I'll see you in lesson 8 next week. And be kind to yourself and continue your series of perpetual choices. Together, we don't have to feel like we're fighting so hard against the tide of sad, because we know that we've got each other and we're not alone. Even though we feel isolated, we're not. So I hope that you are enjoying your chrysalis period, this period to go inside, to reflect, to create new habits, to have some growth. It might hurt, but that it might feel really great. And next week, we're going to talk about spreading those wings and embracing this new pattern that you've put into place as you've transformed. All right? I'll see you next week. Can't wait to hear how you're doing.